Hello, welcome to Creative View Podcast. This is Catherine Kirby, and it's Thursday, and it is a very, very windy day outside. I felt like I was Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, and my house was going to take off. So you might hear bangs, and we have an awning. I'm on the back porch, and we have an awning, and it just might make a lot of noise, and you might hear the cat who's inside and isn't very happy. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure all of you have been challenged with staying indoors, and it's the Jewish Passover time, and they celebrate the time when the Israelites stayed indoors and waited for the plague to pass over. Isn't that ironic? So I hope to bring some happiness and cheer. Normally we would all be getting ready to celebrate Easter, and that's kind of on hold like everything else. I feel particularly sympathetic to high school seniors who are missing so many of the usual activities. So make the best of it and maybe get creative. I'm sorry, every time I sit down to do a podcast, I don't know if it's the yarn, the fiber, but my nose starts itching. And I've wondered when people do commercials and movies, how they ignore that. Let me grab a drink. Grab your drink, grab a notebook, grab a pencil and paper so you can write down some of these ideas. And the last, here I am. I'm already dropping things. Take some time and relax. If you are off work, this is an opportunity to do some things, explore, do some things you never had time to do, challenge yourself, and so forth. I've just been experimenting with some of this fun yarn, just crocheting little cat toys to put on a stick or a loop. They love it. This is nothing more than just single crocheting and then putting them all together, and the cats go nuts. At this point, we have two cats. We have our Himalayan Seal Point Mac, and we have Patches, who's a big female cacalico that we are fostering, and she was at the yarn shop, but then we brought her here. She's kind of taken over our bedroom as her office. I put a table by the window and opened up the curtains so she can sit there and look outside. And the first day a bird flew past the window, she literally ducked. It was funny. It was comic. So to get to some old projects, I was working on Ripple Baby Blankets by Celeste Young, and it's just called Rainbow Ripple, and people had all kinds of neat ideas how to do the colors. So my peach is a lot peachier than this, and this is a pretty teal blue, but my project here was for people who come in the shop and are on a budget. Oh, I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be cute if we had a little tiny pom-pom at each corner? Of course, you have to worry about babies getting things loose, getting them in their mouth. That's one reason I like cotton yarn for babies. This is acrylic, and it has the little fuzzies on. But it was to design a kit where people on a limited budget, and sometimes we forget just how limited some people's budgets are, especially the seniors. So I picked 4 colors, and I thought this would be just the perfect size for a car seat blanket, just over their legs. You can put it down, tuck it in. And so my idea was to take the least used color and move it to the outside and move the outside color to the inside and it didn't work because I ran out of yarn. If I would have made this a little smaller, which I think it could be, 3 rows smaller and still be okay, we might have gotten there. So what will I do now? I have more blue left of anything, so I might do a big border of blue. So this is a yarn that sells for $4.99, and so 2 blankets for $20. Not bad. I could do some creative things. I was even going to do just 1 row of each color, but not enough. So I might have to go back and refinagle that. And I do think with all the self-striping yarn and everything, we have gotten lazier at working in ends and everything. So that was a cheaper project. This is Lyra Cozy Alpaca, which after working with the 100% acrylic, my fingers were shouting, "Woo! I'm loving it!" And I picked, again, 3 colors plus another color, a complementary color. And when I just had the gray and pink and white, it was really pretty. When you add the new color, at first you're kind of cringing, thinking, I don't think it's going to work. I shouldn't do it. But you have to give it time. And the colors are complementary. They are in the same color family. But I could have picked other things. The yarn is really soft. It does split, but you know what, ladies? There are crochet hooks for that. Like primes are great, that they just scoop it and you don't have the splitting. It's very soft. It is machine washable. It just feels great. And so I'm at the point where I probably have enough yarn for 1 more row of pink. And I have plenty of the cream color left. But you know what? If it's going to be a car seat blanket, it's time to stop. I don't want to get it to the in-between phase where it's too big to be a car seat blanket and too small to really be a crib size blanket. So I have to think about this. And then I need to think about how I want to do my edging. If I want to do a row of cream, a row of pink, the bigger it gets. And it is kind of disheartening when you have this much left to get almost the whole way around and then realize it's not going to work. It's that old game we all play, let's not have any yarn left over. And it just often doesn't work. But this has really encouraged me to want to use Lyra Cozy Alpaca more. One of my customers knitted a little baby hoodie with it, and it was so nice and soft. So, again, that is the Rainbow Ripple by Celeste Young. Someone made a Spider-Man blanket out of pretty much the same pattern. They did blue and red, and they did black coming for a web, and it was really nice. And I think about 3 years ago or so, excuse me, I'm just gonna try to organize a little bit as I go. I think I may have put something like that on my hook and got started, but you know, I'm trying to go into the land of no excuses. Owning a yarn shop, I find I have excuses. Like I start a sweater, but then we're doing a knit along, and of course the yarn shop owner needs to jump in, and so the other thing gets left behind, and there it is sitting. And then yarn shop owners console each other saying, well, you sell things even if they're just on the needles. This is the little painted mist shawl I made from last week, and the colors are showing up much better here at that window. I had my back to the window, so you could have seen everyone's pretty trees and the beautiful lawns, but in that direction, it was too dark. And I did a podcast on fibromyalgia last week, and I was at the front window, and every time the sun came out, my face got almost white. Then it went in, and I got dark. So we're not going to do that. Before I felt this, I want to show you how big this thing is. If I were a pumpkin head, this is the felted woolly pumpkin. This is where I'm going to put my stem. And I wanted to show you how big it is because it's going to significantly be smaller the next time I see you. This was done with one skein of Louisa Harding Amatola Grande. And it did get pretty monotonous. I mean, when you get to the part that says knit 50 rows, but you know, we all want one of those mindless knitting projects. I remember when my husband drove to California one time, we live in Pennsylvania, and he got to a point where it said something like drive 851 miles. Ah, right. So I was also thought I would have this finished, but I got mixed up and I was working furiously on something that I thought I was supposed to show that I haven't even shown yet. This is Fern by Jan Powers, knitted with, oh, sitting here, the colors are really showing today. I'm so happy. This is Louisa Harding Patara. And now you can see those colors. There's some blues, there's some greens, some grays, dark red, light red. And so you start out small. There's the pattern. Oh, this really shows nicely today. And it gets larger like a boomerang shawl. My points need to be blocked. I am so close to being finished, trying to figure out how much yarn I need left to do the edging. Well, this looks pretty from a distance too. And the other thing would be if I want to do the edging in a different color, because you make these little like bobbles at the points, and that's what really makes it different and makes it special. So maybe next podcast I'll be wearing this. We've been having a lot of rain here lately, and we walk the dogs. It's kind of like a long block, and my big black dog, he's been getting really worn out on the walk, and I'm worried about him. He has to pee at every pole, and but I almost, if he wouldn't have been so big, thought I should try to carry him home. This morning it was kind of a trying morning, one of those mornings where you feel like you should go back to bed, get up, and try all over again. But when we walked outside, I heard I call him the woodpecker, because he's the woodpecker in the neighborhood. And my daughter pulled up with her little son one day, and they got so excited. We saw the woodpecker. So I found him. I was looking up way too high. I have heard, you know, a lot of nature is dog eat dog, that they can work really hard to kind of drill a hole, an opening, a nest, and then another bird can come along and steal it. This is going to be a hat, and it's mostly post stitches, and it's one of those patterns where it can be free or you can buy it without all the advertisements and everything. This is called Lyra L by New Wool, which is I think N-O-O or N-E-W-W-O-O-L-L New Wool, but hopefully that'll be done. That's fun. This is a discontinued tacky yarn called Aria. It's a flat yarn. It has some nylon in it, so the hat's going to have nice stretch. And I think maybe one of the I still have some more crocheters, is Tunisian dishcloths. And when you have textured stitches, these things make really good cleaners because they're nubby and they reach down and get the dirt particles. This is called Tunisian dishcloths. It seems like every time I try to order this, it's on back order. It sells for just $9.99. It has a lot of different Tunisian patterns that you could use to design other things. And if you want a copy, give me an email at creativeyouYarns@gmail.com. Creative You, 2 E's back to back. So I have a few. I have 3. I did want to give a little warning that sometimes when you print out patterns and you're on the go, and designers put different color print to emphasize maybe a part that you repeat, doesn't always print out, and then you're in trouble. So just a little tip there. Okay, last crocheted item. So we finally got to see a few of our grandkids. We're on shutdown and it's been really rough. The dogs and cats have provided some entertainment. Hartley is a big size, about the size of a Labrador retriever. He does have arthritis and he can't get up and down stairs. So the other day, my hip was really hurting. I went upstairs, I heated up a pad, put it on my hip. I just got comfortable when my husband calls me on my phone, my cell phone, and says, "Hey, come down the basement. I have a surprise for you." And I said, "Now?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Now?" And he goes, "Yeah." I can't imagine. I mean, I just saw him like 5 minutes ago, but you know, I come down to the general floor and then I go down to the lower level, the basement, the cellar, whatever you want to call it. And there's Hartley. He's downstairs. I can't believe it. Like, how did he get down there? And my husband said I turned around and there he was. So he didn't tumble down. He managed to get down. Well, the problem was, couple hours later, he was still there, and my good, sweet husband had to carry him up the stairs. What would we do without our guys? I really don't like when women are male bashers. I don't think a woman would like it if her husband was at a male gathering bashing her and her friends. I really appreciate the men in my lives. So then the following day, I got up and went over to the shop to organize and do some things. And my husband said, "Wow, did I ever have a scare?" Well, what happened? He goes, "I let Hartley out. I left the door open, so the breeze, the cool air is coming in. I sit down to enjoy my coffee, and as I'm looking out that window, there's Patches. That's not even our kitty. We're doing foster care. She sauntered out. So she doesn't really like to be picked up, and he ran out there and she was gone. He's like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" So he circles the house. She's nowhere to be found. And when he comes back in and sits down, here she is. She's back in the house. It reminds me of when I was in college, and we went to the president's house, which was on campus, and he had a big white bird called Larry Bird. Larry Bird was big with this Celtic basketball team, and he also had a big tiger cat named, I thought it was Suze, but it was like an Indian name, like the spelling of it was Indian. And he told the story that one day he left Larry out to fly around. He walks across campus, he's in his office, and a few hours pass, and he's like, oh no, Larry, I left Larry out. He's having horror visions that Suze, the cat, has attacked Larry, and he's going to get across campus, and the cat's going to have bird feathers. I mean, we grew up with Sylvester and Tweety, and when he got there, Larry was in his cage. I mean, the cage doors were open. He went back home. He said, of course he did. But we went over there for a class, and we were sitting there on the sofas and chairs, and I was the older student in the class. I was 29, 30. And this big, heavy tiger cat jumps up on my lap, kind of my chest, and I said, it's okay. And he said, well, she's not always the nicest. And I said, it's all right. That cat grabbed my shirt and pulled it down to my waist in front of everybody. Nice kitty, right? So this was the design that I was working on. Woo, look how these bright colors show up. And I was working so much on something else I'll show you that I kind of forgot about this. So I have this design going, and then I went into this design, and now a third design. So I have to figure out where I want to put the rest. This would have been a nice ending, I think, with cream color.